in there.
Okay, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, no worries. But you were saying
I
that he took you
I
to
can
a
hear
camp.
my brother Greer.
You can hear me?
Yeah.
All right, perfect.
No, I was
You,
just using a rhyme. I like to rhyme. So I was saying I can hear my brother Greer.
I love it. I love it.
Sorry.
No, you're
Um,
good.
yeah, so what I was saying was so in the end with that like getting arrested,
Hmm.
so in the end what they did was so they took us to this little encampment where they had some soldiers set up.
Yeah.
And so what they did is the person that they were more interested with was the gentleman I was with.
Mm.
Actually, probably was both of us, but I had my passport on me, and the gentleman didn't have his national identity card,
Oh.
and so they wanted that, and I've never been to this guy's home, so he had to give me directions. He's like, okay, this is where I live. Go to my home. This is how you get to my home. When you get in there, go to this room and like go to this drawer, and that's where my national identity card is. So, oh man, and so I managed to follow his directions. Found his national identity card, came back.
Oh, wow.
The soldier was satisfied with it, and then let him go. But looking back, it's like okay, nothing went wrong, but it's scary at the time.
Yeah.
I'm a foreigner, and again, like I told you, my background is both Kenyan
Mm.
and American, and I went to Rwanda as a Kenyan. The
Got
reason being that as a Kenyan, I didn't need to apply for a visa. Um, okay, that's not terribly accurate. It was easier to get a visa. Let me put it that way.
Mm.
You know, it's kind of like you're Kenyan. Okay, you can get a visa. You can be in Rwanda for whatever. Initially, it was 3 months. And then after a while, I had to get a new visa every 1 month. But it was just easier as a Kenyan.
Hmm.
But politically, what happened was that because of issues around the genocide, there
Yeah.
was incredible tension between the Kenya government and the Rwanda government because there was a feeling that some of the architects of the genocide were in Kenya and that the Kenyan government was giving them
Mm.
safe haven. So the Rwandan government was not happy about that. So even when we're there, like people would tell me things like, you're a Kenyan, so you better be careful because like the government, they don't like Kenyans. And I wouldn't really say anything ever happened to me because I was there with on a Kenyan passport. But at the time when you hear these things, and you're in a country that just like has just soldiers everywhere you look, and it just came out of civil war, that can be pretty scary.
Mm.
So that's the part when I say, scary. I remember one time I got summoned. I got summoned to a place. I didn't know it was like a cross between an immigration office and like, like more like a law enforcement office. And they made me make a statement as to why I was in their country. And it was, again, it was really intimidating. Then I write my statement, I give it to them, and the guy says, all right, now tell us the truth. This is what you've written here, but tell us the truth. I mean, it's just, but even that one, different doors opened, and things worked out. But there were, a lot of intimidating things that came up,
Yeah.
during our time there in Rwanda and also during my time in Ethiopia.
What's the what's the biggest lesson you learned from the mission trip? Like, did it have to deal with you like deciding to go like your first year of college or like with your dad or what was it?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest lesson I learned, and it's similar to a lesson I learned because later what happens after years being missionaries
Mm.
in Rwanda, so we returned to Kenya, which was kind of our base at that point. So we continued working in church ministry, and then after a few years, we segued into working with the nonprofit that I mentioned, that's affiliated to the church. And then at that point, I was working in HIV prevention. So
Got
that
it.
was just, a response to what at that point was a pandemic, the HIV and AIDS pandemic. And so I was assigned to a rural area.
Mm.
So as much as I had been living in the capital city, Nairobi, I was assigned uh, to work and manage a program in a rural area. And so what I learned both from the mission and all over again when I was working in the HIV response, to me was just the power of kindness and connection. And for me, I feel like that's it just it counts so much, and it's such a difference maker. And because I know that, so when I'm out there as a missionary,
Mm,
it comes back to that whole thing about wanting to make a difference,
yeah.
And so as a missionary, I wanted to make a difference because I know how much my faith and having a relationship with Christ has changed my life and transformed my life. And so I want to be able to share that with other people
Mm,
and help them to experience the same thing. And then when I was working the HIV response, I'm wanting to make a difference. And also, my work was mostly with young people, not exclusively, but mostly. And I'm wanting to help the young people with information. I want to help them make decisions, make healthy decisions. We did a lot of work also with people living with HIV, and again, they want to make a difference with treatment, with medication, with information. And at a certain point, there's only so much you can do. You can help people, only to a certain point.
yeah.
But the one thing I feel, the one currency that is in no short supply and which goes such a long way is just compassion and connection,
Mm,
and kindness, just trying to understand people, meet them where they are, um not not approach them as knowing more than them, or I don't know, being better than them in any way, or it's just really just connecting with people, uh especially when it comes to exposed to different cultures or countries or just situations, learning their language,
mm,
connecting with their culture, understanding where they're coming from. And that I would say would be the biggest lesson. Is this a currency that goes such a long way? Uh,
got it.
when people feel that you care. I know there's this saying, by the way, you may have heard it, but they say people don't care how much you know until they know that you care.
Mm,
I just find that so true. And that's the lesson I learned. I'm not naturally a caring person. I naturally I'm hard on myself,
okay.
and then I'm hard on others, and in not a very nice way. And then I'm also I'm very introverted, and timid. So even like stepping outside of myself to go and do something for somebody, or involve myself with someone I don't even know. Like that's not me. I'd
Yeah.
rather just mind my own business. But you can't let yourself be that way and still make a difference. You
Yeah.
can't avoid people and then still help people. You can't do both.
Yeah.
So uh so the mission taught me to step outside of my comfort zone, which for me, many times my comfort zone was a selfish zone because I just want to get wrapped up in myself. And so the
Mm,
mission taught me that step outside of my comfort zone in order to have concern and show compassion towards others. So that's what I would say is the biggest lesson.
amazing. Did that become the main theme for your book? I haven't read it yet. I've only read a few pages, but is that the main theme of the book?
Uh, I didn't even know you have the book.
I don't have it. I was looking it up and I
Oh,
just
okay,
saw like a
nice.
few pages. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, nice. All right. Okay, I was wondering. Yeah. So, wherever I can, I like giving people a signed copy. It's not always possible, but where
Yeah.
I can, like this personal touch there. Yes. Short answer, yes. So a lot of the book really is about that. And the book arose from my own personal reflections. And it's a combination of things. There's like what we just talked about, the compassion and the connection, being able to make a difference in other people's lives through that, not through
Yeah.
like knowing a whole lot or being super brilliant. Sometimes I've realized actually I'm not quite as brilliant as I thought I was, but you know what I'm saying? But yes, through the compassion and everything. But it began through my own personal reflections. And you know, at times I felt like I felt like I've underachieved in life many
Mm,
times. So, you know, and so when I wrote, I was writing for myself. And then if there's anyone out there who can relate, fine. You know, some people can't relate, so they don't want the book. They're not interested. Fair enough. You know, but as an author, that's a lesson I had to learn. It's like, you know, I felt bad whenever, you know, there's a situation where someone doesn't want my book and, you know, I'm talking about my book and no one's interested. And I remember because, you know, I'll listen to different things, different like, you know, online fora that discuss authorship and stuff. And I remember one time somebody said, let people know what your book is about so they can decide whether it's for them or not. So
yeah.
that's okay if it's not for them. So anyway, back to what I was saying is it started with personal reflections and, you know, my own, you know, personal Bible study and thinking through my own life. And then again, writing a book was also something I had long wanted to do because I love writing.
Same.
And so that's how it more, or you too?
Hmm.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. You know, and so so I'd long wanted to write a book. I didn't know what to write about. There's nothing that
Uh,
was like naturally just coming to me. And again, it all fell into place. And so I was like, fine, I've put this together for myself. Well, you know, I can put it together in a more concrete way. And so anybody who can relate to these same themes,
mhm.
hopefully the book can be an encouragement or a help. And so there is that, like, you know, we talked about the kindness, the compassion, you know, learning to be able to make a difference through that.
Yeah.
And the element, sorry, that I'd begun to mention that, you know, sometimes when I think through my life, you know, I feel that I underachieved. Not like my life is over, by the way. I mean, I'm still here for now. But looking back, you know, I'm 56, so I've been around for 56 years,
Yeah.
and it's easy for me to feel like I've underachieved. So, so I'll come back to what you asked me earlier.
Yeah.
You know, do I regret the decision to leave Williams after my freshman year? No, I don't regret that. Sometimes though, I will think, oh, you know, what would it have been? Where would I be now? Let's say career wise, if I'd seen out my 4 years at Williams and graduated with a degree from Williams College. And you know, I'll think through things like that. So like, and even, you know, more recently, I was at the United Nations. I worked at the United Nations for 15 and a half years. And
Mm,
that's, you know, on paper, that sounds really nice. You know,
yeah.
working at the United Nations, that's not bad. And then it came crashing to an end.
Oh.
And so again, things like that will leave me feeling like I underachieved. And I know like their colleagues who are kind of in a similar same boat as I was, and they're still at the United Nations. And it's easy to start having like second guessing myself. Um, and you know things to that extent. Even the you know the work I did as a missionary, and then you know after that I was. I mean, in one sense, you could still say I was a missionary, but when I went back to base in Kenya, at that point, I'm regarded as a minister, okay, as opposed to a missionary who's been sent somewhere else. And and sometimes, you know, I look back and I feel like, wow, I didn't quite, I didn't become all that I feel I could have become.
Huh.
I didn't become all that I saw other people become. And so that's where it's easy for me to get feelings and thoughts of you know not being good enough or you know I didn't achieve. And then I think about my dad and I'm like, you know, my dad set me up for greatness. You know, he took his path. He became, I mean, he was brilliant. You know, he
Yeah.
was. And I'm super proud of him. And I'm thinking for all that he set me up for. And you know, he helped me get into amazing schools. You know, both in Kenya and then, you know, get into Williams. And you know, he's not around anymore. But then sometimes I'll ask myself, you know, it's is or not ask myself, but I feel like I fell short of what he set me, the path that he set me up for. So things like that. And so even in my reflections that became my book, it's
Hmm.
all that. And I'm thinking, I know there are people out there who think similar things and feel similar things. Some people don't, but there are a bunch of people who do. And so that's where the whole thing about the book is, looking beyond your weaknesses to see the difference your life can make. And so even the title, Going the Strength You Have, comes from the book of Judges, chapter 6, where there's a conversation between the angel of the Lord and Joshua.
Huh.
Sorry, not Joshua, Gideon. Sorry, Gideon. And at that point, Gideon is he's looking down on himself. He says, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, I'm the weakest in my family and my clan, and like, and my family is the weakest in our clan. And it's just he's so down on himself.
Hmm.
And yet the angel comes and says that God is calling you mighty warrior. Like, here's this guy, he's all weak and like, and God calls him a mighty warrior. And then says, go in the strength you have. And the
Mm.
point that I get from that and the encouragement that I get from that is I don't have to be someone else. With the strength that I have and who I am, just go in that strength.
Mm.
Don't put yourself under the pressure of being someone else. No, or because you'll never be anybody else. You can only be yourself. And that was enough. Like in God's eyes, for Gideon, that was enough. So Gideon saw himself as a loser. God saw him as a leader. Gideon was a warrior, and God saw him as a warrior. There was such a big difference there. Um, Gideon saw himself as incapable. God saw him as invincible.
Mm.
And so that really is what the book is talking about and encouraging the reader is to look beyond your weaknesses and really get a vision for the difference that your life can make.
Wow, you inspired me to write my own book because it's so deep just writing a book and hearing where the inspiration came from, even just the simple title itself, which I knew nothing of the backstory, and then hearing it, it's like it stems throughout the entire book. It's amazing.
I'm sure you have a bunch of amazing books in you.
Thank you. Yeah, I really. What would you recommend for somebody who wants to start writing their own book? Because I see like a lot of people online kind of just like writing in their journal, like what they want to put down, but like how should somebody start that?
One of the tools that I got when I wanted to get published, and then my publisher shared, the person who eventually became my publisher shared. There's a write up that he shares, I guess, with
Yeah.
most potential writers, and then some other material I'd read. I feel like everyone has a story,
Hmm.
and what you want then is to frame that story. So in most cases, when people want to write, um, there's something they want to write about.
Hmm.
I know for me, for many years, I wanted to write. I didn't know what to write about. I thought about writing about marriage, by the way. I'm like, nah, I'm not qualified. I need to read about marriage, not write about it. Um, but so the thing is, then frame your thoughts. Just jot them. I still believe in sometimes, paper and pen helps, or some people get like this big, like a
Yeah, I've
chart. If
seen.
you have space, put it up there and then, frame your thoughts. And those become the chapters of your book.
Mm.
And then just, so when you start with an initial draft of just framing your thoughts, I don't know, maybe my thoughts are, I don't know, just throw something at me there that somebody might want to write about.
Self-identity, who you believe yourself to be.
Okay, let's say that. So self identity, and so that's what I want to write about. And then So maybe I have thoughts of, some of the struggles that some people have
Yeah.
with that. Because at the point that someone wants to write about that, I'm sure that they have quite a body of thoughts.
Hmm.
So that could be one area. What what are some things that people think about themselves that are different from who they are? So within that, there's like, I don't know, what are some of the limiting beliefs that they have? Another portion could be why. So
Mm.
where does this come from? And then another portion could be, so how? So how does somebody move from that to really having a solid and stable self identity? And that could be the start. And then who knows? You might come up with several other, like subtopics, but
Yeah.
start with as much of that as you can put together, and then just because again, you're coming from a body of some amount of knowledge, and then you want to do a bit of more research on each. But once you have that skeleton, then you can just start adding to each of those subtopics,
Wow.
and it comes together. And then it helps to if you have people you can bounce it off. And for me, my main thing was putting it in the publisher's hands and getting the publisher's feedback.
Yeah.
So that's what I'd say. Sorry about that.
No worries. I see the cough, but I'll work on it. I'm gonna definitely work on it. It sounds
Yeah,
fascinating.
let me take a drink here.
Oh, me too. Oh man.
You can edit that, I know.
Of course. Let me see if I have any more questions, but this has been fascinating so far,
That was more from scratchy throat.
Tom. Nah, but that was actually all of the questions. Like we got through the entire thing. Let me think if I let me see. Oh, I never asked you, what do you do now? Or like, I guess if you're not working now, what did you do after you came back from the missions trip and I guess graduated?
So what I do now. All right. So when I came back to the States, I so that's another story in itself, by the way.
Okay.
So I came back to the States because I felt it was time.
Mm,
So what happens is my mom passed away when I was 10.
gotcha.
And so from the age of 10, she wasn't present. And she passed away in Kenya. And so as long as I was in Kenya, I mean, it was just a reality that I lived with. It wasn't anything major. But once my wife and I had our son, so God blessed us with an amazing son. So we adopted him when he was 1.
Mm,
We adopted him in Kenya. And so as he was growing up, so he's growing up in Kenya. So my wife is from Kenya. She was born in Canada. Her parents and family are Kenyan. And so us being in Kenya, so my son was growing up knowing my wife's side of the family,
yeah.
a bit of my dad's side of the family. And I'm thinking, he's growing up and he does not know my mom's side of the family. But then I too myself, with the passage of time, I felt like, I'm so disconnected from them.
Mm,
And so one of the main motivations in coming back to the States was that I wanted to reconnect with my mom's side of the family and to reconnect with her. Like in her absence, I wanted to reconnect with her. And I felt that could only happen by coming back to New York. Because for me, New York is my mom. That's she may not be present here anymore, but that's her. That might sound weird to people, but hey, that's it for me. There's a spiritual connection to my mom that I feel, when I'm in New York, when I'm like in her hometown. And so I eventually actually ended up going to St. Croix, which is where her maternal grandmother grew up. And it was the same thing. I'm just like, wow, this is where her name is Mary Joseph. This is where Mary Joseph grew up. And I just felt that connection. And those are all things that couldn't happen if I remained in Kenya. So that was one of the main reasons that I came back to the States. And I didn't come back to a job. I came back and it was square one. And so I ended up at
Wow.
the United Nations, like I said.
Yeah.
And so I was working in operations. So that's things like procurement, budget monitoring, logistics as well for conferences and traveling. And so at a certain point, I then also became an adjunct professor, and I was doing both. I was
Yeah.
working at the UN full time, and I had my adjunct professorship teaching management. And so currently, that's what I do exclusively is my professorship teaching management
Gotcha.
here in New Jersey.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's amazing. The whole story in itself, like coming back, then United Nations, then teaching. Wow. That is amazing.
that is it.
I think that might be it. I'm gonna do like a formal out and then I'm gonna turn off the recording and then we can
All
talk
right.
after that. But
Can I share one story before the formal out?
of course.
And then you can edit all together. So, one of the things that stands out, I mean, there are a lot of things that stand out to me. When I remember the mission field, and one in terms of the power of compassion and connection and the difference that makes is the important element when working with people, just being aware, being there, and then taking the time to care. And I remember there was a lady in Rwanda when my wife and I were in Rwanda, and this lady, she was a single mom. She had two children, and what had happened was because of the genocide that she survived. So she survived the genocide, of course. I mean, she survived, so
Yeah.
we knew her. So there was an element to the genocide so what happened with the genocide that took place around 1994 in Rwanda is in many cases people sought shelter in church buildings.
Hmm.
There's a particular church that was predominant in Rwanda at the time, and in many cases people sought shelter in those church buildings. And previously, because in 1973 there had been a similar situation in Rwanda, uh, those were sanctuaries. People were safe. You flee to a church building, you're safe. And
Got
so that's what happened this time. People fled to church buildings. So, people would like be there and just packed into church buildings. And rather than being a sanctuary, those church buildings became houses of slaughter.
it. Hmm.
And so those who were perpetuating the genocide, they would then get the people, and it was not like they had people caged. And so the priests were no longer seen as being safe
Hmm.
because they, I guess you could say, allowed this to happen. But the point is that then church buildings in many cases became like slaughterhouses, really where people were killed. And sometimes what would happen from what I've read also is because the people they couldn't like I hope I'm not getting too graphic, but they
Yeah.
couldn't kill everybody all at once. So many times what they would do is they would cut their Achilles, the Achilles tendon,
Yeah.
so that people couldn't run away. Then they'd come back later on and kill them. This particular lady, she actually witnessed her father being killed.
Hmm.
Um, so she hid, she survived, but she witnessed people coming to their home and killing her father. And so because of that, the situation I just described, she had resolved never to step into a church scenario again. She lost faith in the church.
Hmm.
Then, as far as her husband, because she was a widow, I'm not sure if I'd mentioned that she was a widow, and her husband he died as a result of poisoning.
Wow.
And so, he had been poisoned. He spent some time in the hospital
Hmm.
and then died. And because of the trauma from that, she going to a hospital was just something she couldn't come around to doing. So she resolved never to go to church again,
Hmm.
and she was too traumatized to go to hospitals. Well, guess what? Here we come along. We're doing our thing, sharing our faith, and one of the benevolent, because remember, we're trying to start some benevolent activities. And so
Yeah.
what we started with was visits to the hospital, where we go on Saturdays and see people who are in the hospital and try, cheer them up and just spend some good time, give them some psychosocial support. So A, we're a church, and B, we're going to hospitals
Yeah.
to try and help people. Two places she had resolved not to go again, either out what she resolved not to do or what her trauma kept her from.
Mm.
Well, guess what? She did both.
Mm.
She came along, eventually, of course, not immediately, became a part of our congregation, felt safe and secure there, and became an active participant in us going making our hospital visits.
Wow.
And for me, I saw the power of now that's what I was saying, that compassion and connection. It wasn't about like being strategic and knowing a whole lot of things and being psychologists, and so now we know how to like approach her. No, that was just compassion and connection, and just and a wonderful lady. And she blossomed. She came to faith, and uh, her daughter as well. And it's for me, that's one story that just, when I think about it, it really moves me.
Mm.
Um, so that's one thing that stands out for me. This with the power of compassion and care and connection.
Wow. Well, Rayola, I really appreciate you sharing the stories and your story, of course, with us today on this podcast. And it was a pleasure hosting you.
Yeah, thanks for the time, and I really appreciate having me on your podcast.
Of
I wish
course.
you awesome things with the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. I will stop the recording.